heart reaching, knowledge leaking, seeds sowing, harvest reaping, man of me to me. I have yet to leave, I'm still breathing. To quit, I have no reason. I mean, I'm asleep, but I be trying to live my dream. I cannot even act if it's all easy. Either you gon' do it or you don't. Really, it ain't no in between. Baby, you can ask the sun. It's an everyday thing. Consistency in your routine is how you bring reality. Working like a slave, that's how I made this masterpiece. Living like a god, I lay at night, I rest in peace. They remember me, but I am not Haram Beast.
Peace. Greetings. Happy Holy Friday. Gratitude, everyone tapped in again to another BBT book club preview. And again, I'm your host, Noble Moso L of the Burning Bush Tabernacle Science Temple and School. Check us out, bbtsciencetemple.com. We have a lot of classes we're doing every weekend, every week. We offer books through our company, mypdfbooks.com. Hold on, let me show y'all some of the promo information. mypdfbooks.com, where reading funds the mental. You get a lot of these topics that we read and have been previewing and going over for the last few months. Definitely want you to have this literature in your library so you can study along with us and keep up and dialogue and ask questions. Again, mypdfbooks.com if you'd like any physical copies of any of these books. The sister company is bindedbooks.com. Excuse me. We also offer Moorish regalia, cultural garb, if you need any suits, turbans, kufis, fez, jewelry, athletic wear. It's a lot of items, ties, bow ties. You can find all these things through MoorishHaberdasher.com. If you're looking for any other Moorish drip inspired by the Renaissance period, check out Moorsachi.com. Also, any music you're looking for, Moorishly inspired, BHB or BH Bay Music. And you're looking for any herbal teas to go with your books, check out Mayat Sons, Divinely Prepared, the Tea of Teas. So I want to say peace and love and light, nobles. Mufti Brian, Sheik. I wanted to put a little Brian music in the background. That was the last thing I forgot to do. But yeah, nobles, it's Happy Holy Friday. Good Friday. Great week. Everybody's been doing great in their endeavors. Gratitude for all the nobles tapping in. There's one book here I wanted to go over. Get this off the screen. We can see this cover. You can see this is a Trinity pyramid structure with the book on the pineal gland, so it's some higher knowledge. And this is just some books, a book I go through time to time and wanted to highlight by the noble Naeem Akbar. Go back up so you can see his name.
Do you hear what I'm saying? I just want you to think about it. Wrap your mind around it. Do you hear what I'm saying?
As I was saying, this is a book by Naeem Akbar. I'll show y'all his name. Great doctor on our heritage. Dr. Naeem Akbar. Know thyself. It's just been a topic I wanted to speak on because, just thinking about like mental health and, people's spiritual health, physical health, all these things make us the total people that we are. And I know just personally, just knowing more about Moorish history, Islam, Judaism, Christianity, just studying deeper and illuminating and having breakthroughs and revelations through etymology of the words, through historical accounts, through imagery left in stone and documents. It's all this history definitely gives you gave me real inspiration and purpose, to see the greatness that our ancestors did and have done, and we know that it can be done again. It's just doing it in the way that's for today, just like athletes do. Again, the same sport, same rules, but certain things change. And I know, just understanding our lineage through the Moorish history to enslavement, that break, and that, that mental state that keeps our people not wanting to, understand what we really contributed to the society. And I mean, this book, this brother, he breaks down a lot of that. I'll just go over some of his table of contents first. Chapter 1 talks about education, which is a vehicle for transmission of consciousness. Talks about the functions of education, identity, legacy of competence, acquired immunities, developing a shared vision. That's just chapter 1. Those topics alone are very key to study and dissect, because just the functions of education and identity alone. A lot of us identify with certain narratives that don't serve us historically, spiritually, economically. So it's like we've been put in this historical Negro box, and then you've been selectively embracing certain greater history, which has all been done through certain words, as we study the word Arab, we study the word Bedouin, Muslim, Saracen, all these different words are synonyms for people who come from our bloodlines. And when you negate that and look at those people as other, I feel like you could sell yourself short by not understanding the totality of our heritage and our history. So, that's what here at the BBT, that's why we love to, dialogue and just study deeper history, study all spiritualities, all religions, all ancient texts. I mean, we have them all here at mypdfbooks.com. See it down there on the ticker. Also, bindedbooks.com and Herbs of Mayat. If you want any books on wellness, human body, we have we have one-stop shop for a lot of topics that are a lot cheaper than Amazon. But just to continue to read the intro, it says the table of contents, chapter 2, defining the self. What is the African concept of self? The soul as core of the self. The personal dimension of self. The tribal self. Chapter 2 continues to go into just understanding the self, the core, as it says, the soul, the personal dimension, and the tribal. Chapter 3 is education as power, influencing the physical environment, the environment of ideas, influencing the social vision. Chapter 4, how to study the self, origins of civilization, the study of nature, the study of God. And just to stop there, all this is what Moorish science truly is, and it's divine understanding and studying nature, God, the origins of civilization. These are all things that we study here at the Burning Bush. And so if you'd ever like to study with us, we have classes every Saturday, every Sunday on all these topics. To continue, chapter 5, learning to educate ourselves, deconstruction, reconstruction, and construction. And just with that, we know where there was reconstructed history. There was deconstructed history, and then there was reconstructed history. But it's up to us as scholars, as students, as educated people to research more, invest in books, invest in documents, rare books, rare out of print. You definitely got to have these documents and books to cross-examine and dissect on your own time. And I'll just read a little bit of the introduction. It says, knowledge is the hallmark of civilized human life. That special attribute which distinguishes human life from all other forms of life on this planet is the unique ability to acquire knowledge. Knowledge is the capacity to know oneself and to have the ability to communicate that knowledge to others. Other animals have the capacity to learn and to establish new behavior that is actually only habit or action without awareness. Human beings are capable of knowledge acquisition, and this permits them to move above the level of habit and actually gain the transmit knowledge about themselves and the world that they live in. Over generations, other forms of life may alter their genetic code by altering their habits. over sustained periods of time, but they are unable to leave a record of the rationale for developing certain patterns, mastering certain obstacles, and breaking down the complexity of some aspects of the environment. This remarkable and significant way of getting knowledge and passing it along permits human beings to master their environment and themselves unlike any other form of life. We are able to redesign much about the environment that we live in because our knowledge of it, of its patterns and its cycles. We are ultimately able to change ourselves and improve ourselves unlike any other form of life because of the accumulation and transmitted knowledge of who we are and how we function. The real mark of civilization is in the maintenance of certain systematic knowledge that preserves the code of how to overcome obstacles and understand problems that reoccur in the environment. We don't have to grow another layer of hair over the course of several generations, as other mammals must do in order to survive the elements. Instead, we need only keep a mental record or an external or internal library of how the cold was avoided when it came before. This mental record permits each generation to rise above those who came before because we are able to build on the knowledge of those who have already mastered a problem. Whereas it takes other animals literally scores of generations to alter their instinct in order to transmit the newly discovered messages, humans are transformed by the single discovery that is preserved and then transmitted forevermore. Transformation can occur for the entire human race by the one-time discovery of a bit of knowledge that makes everyone different from that point forward. The discovery of the use of fire transformed human beings from that generation forward. The same can be said about electricity, engines, flight, the causation of disease, etc., etc. Whereas it probably took the first birds several thousand years to master flying, we encode it in their genes in just a couple of generations. After the Wright brothers, every human being on the planet is now capable of flying. Smallpox once wiped out entire populations, but once its cause was understood, it now has the rarity of a remote moment in history. All civilized groups struggle to preserve their shared or collective information. There is recognition that the people's ability to survive and master the obstacles of the environment is a direct consequence of their ability to preserve their knowledge. There is also recognition in the process of human competition for limited resources and preserving ourselves. We must ultimately seek to gain greater knowledge than our competitors. So each group not only engages in the process of developing and sharing certain knowledge, they also engage in the concealment of knowledge, which may give them enhanced effectiveness over their competitors. Human communities must acquire and preserve the secrets of life that ensure their survival. Each community must also be sensitive to the excessive appetites of some groups that requires the more modest to defend themselves by maintaining an advantage in their knowledge base. And I mean, that was saying a lot right there. I mean, understanding how a lot of we all do agree that our ancestors were stripped from different languages we spoke, mother tongues, and ancient practices, and a lot of these things were even outlawed and illegal in the Americas. So I mean, to understand that we have so much more to, relearn, restudy. A lot of these things are still encoded in our genetics, as we know, the Akashic records, and through astral travels and meditation and prayer and studying language, you can unlock so much more within yourself and your culture. Just to continue a little bit of this, I won't read everything, but it says consciousness, literally translated to mean with knowledge or knowing with others, is the internal manifestation of knowledge. Awareness is the distinguishing quality that differentiates between human life that is functional and life that is dysfunctional. As a people's shared knowledge is the criteria for assessing their level of civilization. Personal awareness is the way by which we determine individual functioning. There is no wonder that the ancient African people taught the world and later transmitted by the Greeks and Roman students of Africa. That the ultimate instruction for human growth and transformation was, man, know thyself. To be conscious was to be alive and to be human. The greater the consciousness, the higher was the expression of one's humanity. Human beings in their highest points of development, as in Egypt or Kemet or the ancient Mayans, etc., were most noteworthy for their devotion to the development of consciousness. These societies were distinguished by their commitment to developing images and structures that cultivated the human consciousness. Such societies were also famous for the devotion of large groups of people to the process of consciousness development for the benefit of the entire society. We are told that in the peak of Kemetic civilizations, there were actually more than 80,000 students who were studying the systems of consciousness development at Epet Esut, called by the later interpreters the Temple of Karnak. There is reason to believe that these ancient temples and all of their embellishment were developed for the express purpose of cultivating human consciousness. Even the pyramids and the mighty Sphinx were obviously more than pagan idols and temples. It took great levels of skill to construct these mighty structures. The failure of contemporary efforts to duplicate these building feats suggests that these were examples of high form of science than current science and not just the clumsy efforts of a primitive and pagan people, as some have claimed. Consciousness is a valued human asset, and every people seek ways to enhance their knowledge, particularly their self-knowledge. There is a mistaken notion that consciousness is a finite resource, and many people engage in the hoarding of these resources under the assumption that if they don't accumulate more than others, then they will be less effective as human beings. There has also been the discovery by some that other human beings can be subjugated and made servile by limiting their consciousness of themselves and by imposing certain selective aspects of alien knowledge on others. Excuse me. It is the recognition of the consequence of losing self-knowledge and being overwhelmed by the knowledge of another group of people that inspired Dr. Carter G. Woodson's description of the process which he called miseducation. As we know, the book Miseducation of the Negro. Through Dr. Woodson applied the concept of miseducation specifically to the conditions and circumstances of African Americans. Such a process can ultimately undermine the human endeavors of any people. In Dr. Woodson's case study of the African American, he demonstrated the consequence of an entire group of people being systematically deprived of the knowledge of themselves. He described the personal and collective consequences in the behavior and conduct of people who lost their self-awareness because of a process of deliberate miseducation. In order to correct the process of miseducation and to heal the consequence of this plague, it is necessary to gain a basic understanding of what education should be. Though there is considerable educational philosophy and theories of education that have been offered by European American educators, we cannot risk the use of those theories since they have been offered by a tradition of education which has comfortably and deliberately miseducated African Americans and other non-European people. The object of this discussion is to look at the process of education in a holistic way and to determine what should be the ingredients of an effective education. We shall draw upon the traditions of African education as means of conceptualizing what this educational process should entail. We shall also include concepts from the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his highly successful educational program for the Nation of Islam. We should end up with a model of educational institutions which teach African Americans as well as some guidelines for the process of re-education of those African Americans who have already been miseducated by institutions that did not have their true education in mind. So yeah, this is why we have the Burning Bush Tabernacle and why we're members, master students. We all study. We have a plethora of books and documents to study on these topics of miseducation and correcting the misunderstandings of what more science is and what the full history of America entails. The history of the Navy, the history of Tripoli and the Moors, and Thomas Jefferson's Quran, just the full totality of American history. The word Negro links back to no coat of arms, no tribe. The movie and film Roots was a plagiarism from Colander. So I mean, a lot of the history that was told to us about ourselves has been propaganda and, like I said, miseducation. And it's part of our mission is, re-educating people respectively. We've all been in a place when we didn't have this knowledge, so we just love to share it. We invest in it, through our different platforms, through our different classes. So I definitely encourage people to tap in with our classes every weekend. We have them. Peace and love, all the nobles in the chat. Alonzo. Let me change the banner. If you're looking for any books, I'm going to put on our classes though. In tomorrow's class, we have Adept class on Saturdays. We have Sunday schools on Sundays. We study all topics from business to health to finance, spirituality. The three main, houses: Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. We study all of them. Buddhism, Zoroastrianism. All these spiritualities have a through line, which is Sufism, and Sufism is what more science is. Sufism is understanding that God and man is one, and not getting lost in any science, but studying them all, not getting lost in one way. Yeah, I wanted to just, this book has a lot. I'm not going to go through all of it, but chapter 1 breaks down the education, which is the vehicle for transmission of self-knowledge. It was a part here I did want to read about an analogy about the dog, the house pet, the dog, and the wolf. I think I'll read that. I'll start at the beginning though, just a little bit. Each generation has the responsibility of maintaining the level of consciousness attained by the previous generations, and of advancing the community to even higher levels by the development of their own consciousness. Every civilized group of people establishes mechanisms by which this process of transmission is ensured. The term that has come to be used to characterize this process is education. The word is derived from the Latin verb educare, which means to bring forth, or to bring up. This means this meaning is obviously much broader than the currently accepted concept of education as a process of teaching or imposing some habits or ideas. Education, in its inception, was understood as a process of harnessing the inner potential that was yet unexpressed and bringing it out or up into the consciousness. The process of equipping the human being with the consciousness awareness of their true nature was an essential task that every society proved provided for its offspring. They fully understood the gross limitation of reproducing their flesh in the young without reproducing their minds. Education was both a sacred right and responsibility because without it, no one born into the world could become fully human. Our humanity is defined and distinguished by the development of knowledge and particularly self-knowledge. Therefore, it is critically necessary for each generation to learn who and what they are. This process is not limited to the transmission of certain skills and habits. Certainly, there is much about human survival that has to do with the transmission of certain skills, and the earliest learning that we experience firmly implants many of those basic skills, such as walking, speaking a language, etc. The development of such skills is the beginning of the educational process, to the extent that they enhance our survival and are consistent with our human nature. Excuse me. An analog that we may use by looking at a lower animal, like a dog, gives us an idea of the difference between training and education. It says the difference between training and education. The dog learns how to bark to scare away its enemies, the predators, to defend itself by biting its attackers, and to hunt and to feed itself is an educated dog. The dog that learns how to stand on its hind legs and wear a dress and dance to the music of its trainer is actually a trained dog. Despite how impressive the dancing dog may appear to the human observer, the dog has been trained away from its nature. Dogs, in their natural element, don't wear dresses and don't dance on their hind legs when a human provides appropriate music. Though the dog's behavior results in obtaining food and care from a master, it does not afford the dog the ability to care for itself. Such a dog is what Dr. Woodson described as being miseducated, because the dog can perform at someone else's command, but it cannot effectively command itself to do what is required for its life and enhancement. Though this may be the very nature of being domesticated, such an orientation demands dependency on someone other than the one's own resources in order to survive. This kind of learning serves the purpose of the trainer, but it radically handicaps the trained. The trained dog is entertained as a human You may even pay money to see him walk on two legs, dressed like a little human child. This is still a miseducated dog that has been trained by another species that exploits the dog's behavior for the enhancement of their own species' advancement. In fact, as the dog comes to depend more and more on performing for its master, it becomes less and less capable of performing for itself and caring for its own survival. After many generations, dogs are unable to survive as they are their undomesticated as their undomesticated cousins, the wolves, who are called wild by the human, but from the perspective of its own reality, is capable of independent survival, much better than that of the cute pet poodle. As we shall discuss below, people who are trained can only serve those educated people who were their trainers. Like the performing dog, they will only be able to serve their masters and not take care of themselves. And I mean, that was that said a lot, breaking down training and education, straightforward. You want to be educated, not just trained on your heritage and your history. This I didn't want to go too deep on this book, Nobles, but again, this is Na'im Akbar. And he really breaks down, the educational system. Just seeing the foundation of our culture, where our people came from when we were farmers, we had grocery stores, we had oil businesses, we had so many different infrastructural systems that we don't really have now. And I feel like this, speaks to that, as we've been trained to work for so many other companies and other businesses and not really build up our $1 trillion powerhouse that we call the Black community. But once you understand yourself and understand your purpose, your history, your heritage, your spiritual systems, we created all these spiritual houses. So there's no one that you can't. All of them are connected through monotheism, through many astrological connections, which is what most religions are based upon. So again, this is a great book. It's by Na'im Akbar. There's a lot of in-depth knowledge on identity, developing a shared vision, something a lot of cultures have in the Americas, which is a hot topic right now because, people are talking about people who are actually indigenous people, but they've told us that certain people are immigrants, yet their bloodlines are connected to Central America, South America, the adjoining islands. So when you understand the true Moorish heritage, you understand that these tribes have been here before enslavement, during enslavement, and to the present. But we've been swayed by the pen by adopting derogatory terms as Negro and colored. And by us still using these terms, we harm ourselves. Point blank, we harm ourselves in many venues of society. So that's why we say learning the heritage and the spirituality is a key part. Knowing thyself, knowing your ancestry, doing some research on your family last names, your family crests. Just research your matrilineal side, patrilineal side, and just, Google, as Sheik always says, Google family crests, study flags. I think we need to start having a class on some of these basic things, studying different countries that our ancestors lived in. Because a lot of these countries, the people who we see today living there are not the people who are the direct descendants. And when you travel and you talk to people from other countries, you start to see the differences. You see how people have been Americanized, or it's just different differences you notice. And so that's why personally I love to just study different people's culture, study different cultures of our ancestors, not different people's cultures, but East Africa, West Africa, Central Africa. There was a unity between the Moors and other tribes who may have never left the African shore. But when enslavement got big to a point, that's when different families chose to sell other families. And as we know, they have the Slave Coast and Ghana and Senegal, Gorée Island, Cape Verde Islands. I have my personal roots. I've studied, and just studying your family's history, studying your family story. You can study a lot of great civilizations, and nothing's wrong with that. But if you don't take the time to study your family, your family's name, your family's heritage trail through different states of the Americas, through different Native American tribes, different, Moorish Europeans, Moorish Asians. There was indigenous civilizations on all cultures. So again, with no not to be long-winded, but as I said, this is the book Know Thyself by Na'im Akbar. If anybody will want it, leave your email. You can get this from us. Appreciate all the nobles tapped in. Again, my name is Noble Moso L, minister of the Burning Bush Tabernacle, Science Temple and School. You can email me at herbsofmayat@herbsofmayat.com if you'd like any herbal teas, if you'd like any books, any documents. If you'd like to be a guest to our classes on Saturday and Sunday. We work out at 12 noon. Come join us, man. Men, women. We're looking for all brothers and sisters who just want a fellowship and study and learn some new things. With that being said, say peace, love, and light. Islam, happy Holy Friday.
I'm a spirit speaking, truth seeking, heart reaching, knowledge leaking, seeds sowing, harvest reaping, man of nigga me. I have yet to leave, I'm still breathing. To quit, I have no reason. I mean, I'm asleep, but I be trying to live my dream. I cannot even act if it's all easy. Either you gon' do it or you don't really. It ain't no in between. Baby, you can ask the sun, it's an everyday theme. Consistency in your routine is how you bring reality. Working like a slave, that's how I made this masterpiece. Living like a